What would you do if the person you love most in the world told you they were dying? Would you stay, or would you run? One man was about to find out the answer, and what he discovered would shatter everything he believed about his marriage. The rain drummed against the windows of the small apartment in Mapogu as Junho sat across from his mother in the cramped living room. The smell of soybean paste stew lingered in the air, a reminder of the dinner they'd just shared. His mother, Mrs. Kang, set down her teacup with a deliberate clink that made him look up. Junho-ya, she began, using the affectionate form of his name that she only used when something serious was coming. I need to talk to you about Sora. Junho felt his shoulders tense. His wife Sora, the beautiful, elegant woman he'd married 2 years ago. The woman who came from a wealthy family in Gangnam while he was just a high school teacher from a modest background. The woman his mother had never quite approved of. Iyama, not this again. Junho sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. I know you think she married beneath her family's standards, but we love each other. Do you, Mrs. Kang asked quietly. Do you really know if she loves you, Junho? Or does she love the idea of you? The humble, noble teacher who makes her feel good about herself. That's not fair, Junho protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Lately, he'd been wondering the same thing himself. Mrs. Kang reached across the small table and took her son's hand. Her fingers were rough from years of working as a seamstress, the calluses a testament to the sacrifices she'd made to raise him alone after his father died when Junho was 10. Listen to me carefully, she said. When your father got sick, when we had nothing, when the hospital bills piled up and we were about to lose everything, I learned who our real friends were. Most people disappeared, but the ones who stayed, who helped us, who cried with us, those were the ones who truly loved us. I know the story, Iyama, Junho said gently, and I'm grateful for everything you did. But Sora is different. She's never been tested like that. Exactly, Mrs. Kang said, her grip tightening. She's never been tested. You've been married 2 years, Junho. 2 years of you earning a teacher's salary while she's still receiving allowances from her rich father. 2 years of you living in this small apartment while she talks about the penthouse she grew up in. 2 years of you sacrificing while she... While she what? Junho asked defensively. While she waits, Mrs. Kang said bluntly. I see how she looks at you sometimes, son. Like she's waiting for you to become something more. Someone bigger. Someone worthy of her family's name. Junho pulled his hand away. You're wrong about her. Then prove it, Mrs. Kang challenged. Test her. Find out if she would stay with you when things get hard, when you're not the strong, healthy provider, but someone who needs her. How am I supposed to test something like that? Junho asked, frustrated. Mrs. Kang was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was low and serious. Tell her you're sick. Tell her you have cancer, advanced stage, that you need expensive treatment and might not survive. Junho stared at his mother in shock. Are you insane? I can't lie about something like that. Why not? If she truly loves you, she'll stand by you. She'll fight for you. She'll be willing to sacrifice everything, just like I did for your father. And if she doesn't... Mrs. Kang's voice hardened. Then you'll know the truth before you waste more years on someone who only loves you when it's convenient. Iyama, that's cruel. That's manipulative. Marriage is a test, Junho. Life is a test. Better to know now, while you're young enough to start over, than to find out 10 years from now when you have children and you're truly trapped. Junho stood up, pacing the small room. I can't believe you're suggesting this. What if she finds out? What if it destroys our marriage? If a lie destroys your marriage, then your marriage was already built on sand, Mrs. Kang said simply. But if she passes this test, you'll know you have someone who truly loves you. Someone who would stand by you through anything. Isn't that worth knowing? Junho looked out the window at the rain-soaked streets of Seoul. Somewhere across the city, in the expensive Gangnam apartment her father had bought for them as a wedding gift, Sora was probably shopping online or video calling her wealthy friends. She'd wanted him to move into that apartment immediately after the wedding, but Junho had insisted on living modestly, saving money, being practical. It had been their first real argument. She'd eventually agreed, but he'd seen the disappointment in her eyes. The shame when her friends visited and saw their small apartment, the cheap furniture, the lack of luxury. 1 week, Mrs. Kang said, reading his hesitation. Give it 1 week. Tell her you have gastric cancer, advanced stage, that you need expensive treatment. Watch what she does. If I'm wrong, if she proves me wrong, I will never question your marriage again. I will apologize to her on my knees. And if you're right, Junho asked quietly, then you'll thank me for saving you from a lifetime of being loved conditionally. Junho closed his eyes. This was insane, cruel, manipulative. Everything he'd taught his students not to be. But a small voice in the back of his mind whispered, what if she's right? What if you need to know? I'll think about it, he said finally. Don't think too long, Mrs. Kang warned. The longer you wait, the more years you waste. Junho left his mother's apartment and walked through the rain toward the subway station. He didn't want to go home yet. Didn't want to face Sora with this poisonous idea growing in his mind. He ended up at a pojangmacha, a street food tent, ordering soju and tteokbokki he didn't really want. An old man sat next to him, also drinking alone. Woman trouble, the old man asked, noticing Junho's expression. How did you know? Junho asked. That look on your face. I had it 30 years ago when I was deciding whether to marry my wife. The old man poured himself another shot. You know what I wish someone had told me back then? What? That marriage is like a business contract. You need to know what you're getting into, what the other person really wants. I thought my wife loved me. Turns out she loved my family's land. When I lost it in a bad investment, she left. Took our daughter with her. I haven't seen either of them in 20 years. Junho felt his stomach turn. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Find out what your woman is made of before you're in too deep. The old man stood up unsteadily. Test her. That's my advice. Test her before life does it for you. He stumbled away into the rain, leaving Junho alone with his soju and his thoughts. When Junho finally came home, it was past midnight. Sora was still awake, watching a drama on her tablet in bed. She looked up when he entered, and for a moment, he saw genuine concern in her eyes. Junho, where have you been? I was worried. I had dinner with Iyama, he said, hanging up his wet coat. We talked for a while. Sora's expression immediately shifted, her concern replaced by something harder. Your mother, of course. Did she spend the whole dinner criticizing me again? She doesn't criticize you, Junho said, though it was a lie. She looks at me like I'm stealing her son. Like I'm not good enough because I didn't grow up poor and struggling. Sora set down her tablet. I'm tired of it, Junho. 2 years of her making me feel like I have to apologize for my family having money. It's not about money, Junho said quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed. Then what is it about? He looked at his wife. Really looked at her. She was beautiful. There was no denying that. Porcelain skin, delicate features, hair that fell in perfect waves. She was wearing expensive silk pajamas, a gift from her mother. Her nails were freshly manicured. Everything about her spoke of wealth and privilege. But did she love him? Would she sacrifice for him? Sora, he said slowly, his mother's words echoing in his mind. If something happened to me, if I got sick or lost my job, would you stay with me? Sora laughed. a light tinkling sound. What kind of question is that? Of course I would stay. Junho, you're being weird. Did your mother put these ideas in your head? Just answer the question. Sora's smile faded. This is about money, isn't it? You're wondering if I'd stay with you if you were poor. Junho, I married you when you were already poor by my family's standards. A high school teacher doesn't exactly make what my father makes. I chose you anyway. But you didn't choose this life, Junho said, gesturing around their modest apartment. You wanted to live in Gangnam. You wanted the penthouse your father offered. Because it's practical. Because we could save money if we lived there rent-free. Sora's voice rose. But you insisted on this place because of your pride. Because you wanted to prove you could provide. Well, congratulations, Junho. You're providing a one-bedroom apartment in Mapo-gu. Are you happy now? The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. I think, Junho said quietly, I need to know if you'd love me if I couldn't provide anything at all. What are you talking about? Junho made a decision. His mother's words, the old man's warning, the doubt that had been growing in his chest for months, all of it crystallized into terrible certainty. I went to the doctor yesterday. He lied, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. I've been having stomach pains for months. I didn't want to worry you, so I didn't say anything. Sora's face went pale. What did the doctor say? I have gastric cancer, advanced stage, stage 3, maybe stage 4. They need to do more tests to be sure. The lie felt enormous, a weight settling on his chest. But he couldn't stop now. He had to know. Sora's hand went to her mouth. No, that can't be right. You're young. You're healthy. There must be a mistake. There's no mistake, Junho said, and he was surprised by how easy it was to make his voice sound broken. The doctor showed me the scans. There's a tumor in my stomach. It's been growing for months, maybe longer. But... Sora stood up, pacing. But can they treat it? Surgery? Chemotherapy? There has to be something they can do. Treatment is expensive, Junho said, watching her carefully. The doctor said surgery alone would cost 50 million won, maybe more. And then there's chemotherapy, medication, follow-up care. We're talking about potentially 100 million won or more. He saw Sora's expression change. Subtle, but there. A calculation happening behind her eyes. 100 million won, she repeated softly. I have some savings, Junho continued. Maybe 10 million won. And there's insurance, but it won't cover everything. We'd have to sell my mother's apartment, take out loans, maybe even. Ask my father for money, Sora finished, her voice flat. I wasn't going to say that. But you were thinking it. Sora sat back down on the bed, her hands trembling. This is a lot, Junho. This is really a lot to process. I know, he said. I'm scared too. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, standing up again. I need some water. I need to think. She left the bedroom, and Junho heard her in the kitchen. The sound of cabinets opening and closing, water running. He sat alone in their bedroom, feeling sick with what he'd just done. What kind of man lies about having cancer? What kind of husband tests his wife like this? But another voice whispered, what kind of wife pulls away when her husband says he's dying? When Sora came back, she was holding a glass of water but not drinking from it. Junho, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Are you absolutely sure about this diagnosis? Did you get a second opinion? The doctor was very clear, Junho said. But I'm supposed to see a specialist next week for staging and treatment options. Sora nodded slowly. Okay, we can work with that. Maybe the specialist will have better news. Maybe the treatment won't be as expensive as they think. Maybe, Junho agreed, watching her. She set down the water glass and climbed back into bed. But she didn't touch him. Didn't hold him. Just lay on her side of the bed, staring at the ceiling. "I'm scared," Junho said, testing her. "I don't want to die, Sora." "You're not going to die," she said, but her voice sounded automatic, rehearsed. "We'll figure this out. We'll get through this." But she still didn't reach for him, still didn't offer comfort. They lay in silence until Sora's breathing evened out in sleep. But Junho stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and wondering what he'd just unleashed. The next morning, Junho woke to an empty bed. He found Sora in the living room, already dressed, talking on the phone in a low voice. When she saw him, she quickly ended the call. "Who was that?" Junho asked. "My mother. I needed to tell someone." Sora's face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. "I couldn't sleep. I've been up since 5 a.m., researching gastric cancer, treatment options, survival rates." Junho felt a pang of guilt. "Sora, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." "No, I understand why you didn't. You were trying to protect me." She stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. "But Junho, we need to be practical now. We need to make decisions." "What kind of decisions?" "About treatment, about money, about—" She paused. "About our future." Something in her tone made Junho's stomach clench. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking all night," Sora said, not meeting his eyes. "And I think we need to consider all our options, including not pursuing aggressive treatment." Junho stared at her. "What?" "Hear me out," Sora said quickly. "Gastric cancer, especially advanced stage, has a very low survival rate. Even with treatment, the 5-year survival rate is less than 30%. And the treatment itself is brutal. Chemotherapy, surgery, constant hospital visits, pain, suffering. So you're saying I should just give up? Just die?" Junho couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I'm saying we need to be realistic." Sora's voice rose. "If we spend 100 million won on treatment and you still die, what happens to me? I'll be left with nothing but debt. Your mother's apartment will be gone. Our savings will be gone. I'll be widowed and broke before I'm 30. The words hit Junho like a physical blow. "You're worried about money? I just told you I have cancer, and you're worried about money?" "Of course I'm worried about money. Money is how you survive, Junho. It's how you eat, how you live, how you protect yourself." Sora was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. "You think love is enough? You think devotion pays hospital bills? Grow up." "I think," Junho said slowly, his voice shaking, "that if you loved me, you'd be willing to try everything to save me. Even if it meant sacrificing your comfort. Even if it meant asking your father for help." "Don't you dare make this about my father," Sora snapped. "You've always resented my family's money. Always insisted on your pride, on doing everything yourself. Well, now's your chance to see how far pride gets you when you're dying." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Junho asked. "I need air. I need to think. I can't do this right now." She paused at the door. "Maybe you should go stay with your mother for a few days. Give us both some space to process this." And then she was gone, leaving Junho alone in their apartment with the terrible knowledge of what he'd just learned. His wife, the woman he'd married, the woman he'd loved, had just suggested he give up and die rather than risk her financial security. His phone rang. His mother. "Well?" Mrs. Kang asked without preamble. "Did you tell her?" "I told her," Junho said, his voice hollow. "And?" "You were right, Iyama. You were right about everything." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Mrs. Kang spoke again, her voice was sad. "I wish I had been wrong, son. I truly do." Junho hung up and sat down on their cheap couch in their modest apartment, surrounded by the life he'd tried to build with a woman who apparently never wanted it in the first place. And somewhere in Gangnam, Sora was probably calling her parents, calculating her options, deciding whether a dying husband was worth the investment. The test had begun, and Junho was already afraid of the results. Over the next 3 days, Sora barely came home. When she did, she was distant, cold, always on her phone. Junho heard her making calls to lawyers, researching something on her laptop that she quickly closed whenever he entered the room. On the 4th day, she came home with her mother. Mrs. Park, Sora's mother, was everything Sora would probably become in 20 years. Elegant, cold, calculating. She looked at Junho the way one might look at a piece of furniture that had suddenly revealed itself to be termite-infested. "Junho," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "We need to talk." They sat in the small living room, the 3 of them, and Junho felt like he was on trial. "My daughter has told me about your situation," Mrs. Park began, "and I'm very sorry for your illness. Truly, I am. But we need to be practical about this." "Practical," Junho repeated flatly. "Yes. You're a young man, Junho. You have your whole life ahead of you. Or you did, before this diagnosis. But the reality is that gastric cancer at your stage has a very poor prognosis. Even with aggressive treatment, your chances of survival are slim." "So you're also suggesting I just give up?" "I'm suggesting you think about Sora," Mrs. Park said sharply. "She's 27 years old. She's beautiful, educated, from a good family. If she spends the next year or 2 nursing you through a terminal illness, watching you deteriorate, bankrupting herself for treatment that probably won't work, what will she have left? A clear conscience?" Junho suggested bitterly. "A ruined life," Mrs. Park corrected. "Junho, I'm going to be blunt with you. My daughter made a mistake marrying beneath her station. We indulged her because we thought she'd eventually realize it and move on. But then you turned out to be surprisingly stubborn, insisting on this modest lifestyle, refusing our help, making her live like a common housewife." "I wanted us to build our own life together," Junho said. "Well, you've built it, and now look where you are. Dying in a cheap apartment with no money for treatment, and a wife who's realizing she could have done so much better." "Yama," Sora protested weakly, but she didn't disagree. "I'm being honest," Mrs. Park said. "Someone needs to be. Junho, I'm going to make you an offer, a generous offer considering the circumstances." She pulled out a folder from her expensive handbag. Inside were legal documents. "This is a divorce agreement," she said. "If you agree to divorce Sora now, quickly and quietly, we will pay for your cancer treatment. All of it. The best doctors, the best hospital, whatever you need. We'll even set up a fund to take care of your mother if something happens to you." Junho stared at the papers. "You want to buy me off." "We want to free our daughter from a marriage that's about to become a nightmare," Mrs. Park corrected. "And we're willing to pay for your health care in exchange. It's more than fair, Junho. You get to fight your illness without worrying about money, and Sora gets to move on with her life. And if I refuse?" Mrs. Park's expression hardened. "Then you'll force us to take more difficult measures. Sora has consulted with lawyers. In cases where one spouse is terminally ill and likely to leave significant debt, there are legal pathways to protect the other spouse's assets. It won't be pleasant, and it won't be quick, but we will protect our daughter." Junho looked at Sora, his wife, the woman he'd loved. "Is this really what you want?" Sora wouldn't meet his eyes. "Junho, please try to understand. I'm not strong enough for this. I'm not like your mother. I can't watch you die. I can't spend the next year in hospitals, watching you suffer, knowing there's probably no hope. I just can't. So you're abandoning me." "I'm protecting myself." Sora's voice broke. "Why is that so wrong? Why do I have to sacrifice everything for you? We've only been married 2 years. I'm not even 30 years old yet. Why should my whole life be destroyed because you got sick? The question hung in the air, ugly and honest. Because that's what marriage means, Junho said quietly. In sickness and in health, for better or worse. Those aren't just words, Sora. They're promises. Promises made when you were healthy, Mrs. Park interjected. Circumstances have changed. The contract is voided. Marriage isn't a contract, Junho said. Everything is a contract, Mrs. Park replied coldly. Some people just refuse to read the fine print. She stood up, leaving the divorce papers on the coffee table. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign the papers, get your treatment paid for, and let Sora move on. Or refuse, and we'll do this the hard way. Your choice. After they left, Junho called his mother. They want me to sign divorce papers, he told her. They're offering to pay for my treatment if I let Sora go. Mrs. Kang was silent for a long moment. And what did you say? I didn't sign. Not yet. But Iyama, I don't know what to do. If I don't sign, they'll make things difficult. They have money for lawyers, for drawn-out legal battles. And I'm supposed to be dying. Why would I waste my last months fighting? Because you deserve to know the truth, Mrs. Kang said. The whole truth. Not just that she'd abandon you, but how far she'd go. How little you really meant to her. I think I already know. Do you? Junho, give it the full week. See what else happens, and then decide if you want to sign those papers or tell her the truth. That night, unable to sleep, Junho went for a walk. He found himself at the school where he taught, the building dark and empty. He used his key to get in, walking through the silent hallways to his classroom. On his desk was a stack of papers, essays from his students about their dreams for the future. He started reading them in the light from the hallway. Park Minji wanted to be a doctor. Kim Taehyung wanted to travel the world. Lee Jisoo wanted to open a bakery like her grandmother's. Simple dreams. Honest dreams. Dreams that assumed there would be a future to chase them in. Junho thought about his own dreams. He'd wanted to be a good teacher, a good husband, a good son. He'd wanted to build a life based on kindness and integrity. He'd wanted to prove that you didn't need money to be happy, that love was enough. How naive he'd been. His phone buzzed. A text from Sora. I'm staying at my parents' house for a few days. I think it's better if we have some space. I'm sorry, Junho, I really am, but I can't do this. Junho stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. I understand. Take all the time you need. He didn't mean it, but he was curious to see how much time she'd take, how quickly she'd move on. The next morning, Junho went to school as usual. His colleagues didn't know about his illness. He taught his classes, graded papers, pretended everything was normal. But during lunch, the vice principal, Mr. Cho, pulled him aside. Junho, I heard something concerning, Mr. Cho said gently. He was an older man, close to retirement, who had mentored Junho when he first started teaching. Someone said your wife was at a law office yesterday, asking about divorce procedures for terminally ill spouses. Junho felt his face burn with shame. You heard about that. Small world. My wife's sister works at that law firm. Mr. Cho's expression was sympathetic. Is it true? Are you sick? Junho hesitated. The lie was getting bigger, spreading further. I have gastric cancer, advanced stage. Mr. Cho's face went pale. Oh, Junho, I'm so sorry. Does the school know? We should arrange medical leave, support. No, Junho said quickly. Please, don't tell anyone yet. I'm still processing it, still figuring out my options. I need things to be normal for a while longer. Mr. Cho nodded slowly. I understand. But Junho, if you need anything at all, please ask. You're not alone in this." The kindness in his voice nearly broke Junho. Here was a man who was barely more than a colleague, offering more support than his own wife had. "Thank you," Junho managed. "That means more than you know." At lunch, Junho sat in the teacher's lounge with his fellow teacher, Yoon Hae-in. She was a few years older than him, taught English, and had always been friendly without being intrusive. "You look tired," she observed, pouring him tea without asking. "Everything okay at home?" "Just complicated," Junho admitted. Hae-in nodded knowingly. "Marriage is complicated. My ex-husband used to say I was married to my job more than to him. Maybe he was right. After the divorce, I realized I was happier alone than I'd ever been pretending to be happy together." "Do you regret the divorce?" Junho asked. "Only that I didn't do it sooner," Hae-in said honestly. "I wasted 5 years trying to make something work that was broken from the start. We wanted different things. He wanted a traditional wife who'd quit teaching and focus on home. I wanted a partner who'd respect my career. Neither of us was wrong. We were just wrong for each other." "How did you know?" "That it was broken beyond repair." Hae-in considered this. "There was a moment. I got into a car accident. Nothing serious, but I was shaken up. I called my husband from the hospital, and you know what he said? He asked if the car was okay. Not if I was okay. The car. That's when I knew I was married to someone who valued things more than me." Junho felt a chill. "What did you do?" "I filed for divorce the next week. Best decision I ever made. Now I have a cat, a good job, and peace of mind. It's enough." That evening, Junho received a call from a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, a smooth male voice said, "Mr. Kang Junho, this is Attorney Lee from Dehan Law Firm. I'm calling on behalf of your wife, Ms. Park Sora." "What about?" "Ms. Park has retained our services to handle her divorce proceedings. We'd like to arrange a meeting to discuss terms and expedite the process, given your medical situation." "She hired a lawyer," Junho said flatly. "We've been married 2 years, and she hired a divorce lawyer 4 days after I told her I was sick." "Mr. Kang, I understand this is emotional, but we're trying to handle this as compassionately as possible. Ms. Park is prepared to offer you a settlement that includes—" "I haven't agreed to a divorce," Junho interrupted. There was a pause. "Mr. Kang, with all due respect, fighting this will only make things more difficult for everyone. Given your health situation, wouldn't it be better to settle things quickly and focus on your treatment?" "Tell my wife," Junho said slowly, "that if she wants a divorce, she can come ask me herself, face to face, not through lawyers or her mother, herself." He hung up. His phone immediately rang again. This time it was Sora. "Junho, what are you doing? Why are you making this difficult?" "Making this difficult?" Junho repeated incredulously. "Sora, you hired a divorce lawyer. You didn't even talk to me first. You just went straight to a lawyer. Because I knew you'd try to make me feel guilty." Sora's voice was high and strained. "You'd use your illness to manipulate me, to make me stay out of obligation." "Would that be so terrible? Staying with your husband out of obligation? Out of love? Out of any reason other than convenience?" "I can't be what you need," Sora cried. "I can't be your nurse, your caretaker, your widow." "I'm not strong enough, Junho. Why can't you understand that?" "I understand perfectly," Junho said coldly. "You're not strong enough. You're not committed enough. You're not enough, Sora. That's what I understand." She gasped as if he'd slapped her. "How dare you? How dare you judge me when you're the one who kept your illness secret? You didn't trust me enough to tell me immediately." "Because some part of me knew," Junho admitted. "Some part of me knew exactly how you'd react." "If you already knew, then why are you surprised? Why are you punishing me for being honest about my limitations?" "It was a fair question." And Junho didn't have a good answer. "Come home," he said finally. "Come home and we'll talk. Face to face. No lawyers, no parents, just us. If you still want a divorce after that, I'll sign the papers." Sora was quiet for a long moment. "Okay. Tomorrow night. I'll come home tomorrow night." After she hung up, Junho called his mother. "She's coming home tomorrow to talk," he told Mrs. Kang. "I think it's time to end this, to tell her the truth." "Are you sure?" his mother asked. "There's still more to learn." "What more is there to learn, Iyama? She's hiring lawyers, taking her mother's advice, abandoning me. What else do I need to know?" "Whether she'd try to take anything from you on her way out," Mrs. Kang said quietly. "Whether she'd try to claim rights to your mother's apartment, to your pension, to anything she could get her hands on. Give it one more day, Junho. Just one more day." Reluctantly, Junho agreed. The next morning, he received a call from the hospital, the real hospital, where he wasn't actually a patient. "Mr. Kang, this is Seoul National University Hospital. We have your wife here, Park Sora. She's requesting copies of your medical records for her attorney. However, we have no record of you being a patient here. Could there be some confusion?" Junho's blood ran cold. "My wife is there right now?" "Yes, sir. She's quite insistent. She says you were diagnosed with gastric cancer here last week, but we have no record of any appointment or diagnosis under your name." There must be some mistake," Junho stammered. "Tell her I'll call her directly." He hung up and immediately called Sora. "Why are you at the hospital trying to get my records?" he demanded. "Because my lawyer needs documentation," Sora shot back. "We need proof of your diagnosis, proof of treatment costs, proof of everything for the settlement negotiations." "You're investigating me." "I'm being practical." Sora's voice was sharp. "You dropped this bombshell about cancer, about needing 100 million won for treatment, and you expect me to just accept it? My lawyer advised me to verify everything before we proceed." "You don't trust me." "I don't trust anyone when this much money is involved," Sora said bluntly. "And apparently I was right not to, because the hospital has no record of you. So either you're lying about the diagnosis, or you went to a different hospital. Which is it, Junho?" Junho's mind raced. "I went to a clinic first, a small private clinic in Gangnam. The doctor there referred me to a specialist." "What clinic? Give me the name." "Why? So you can investigate that too?" "Yes!" Sora practically shouted. "Because if you're lying about this, if you're faking cancer to manipulate me, I will destroy you. Do you understand? I will take everything. I will ruin your reputation. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are." And there it was, the real Sora, not the scared, overwhelmed wife, the calculating, protective of her assets woman who saw her husband's illness as a potential scam. "You really think I'd lie about having cancer?" Junho asked quietly. "I think people do terrible things when they're desperate," Sora said. "And you've been desperate to keep me in this marriage. Desperate to prove your mother wrong about me, desperate to validate your choice to marry someone above your station. So yes, I think you might lie." "Then we have nothing more to talk about," Junho said. "Don't come home tonight. Don't come home ever. I'll sign your divorce papers." "Wait," Sora said quickly. "Junho, wait. I need the name of that clinic. For the records. For your case against me, you mean. For when you try to prove I committed fraud. If you have nothing to hide, why won't you give me the information?" "Because there is no clinic," Junho thought. "Because this was all a test, and you failed so spectacularly that I can barely recognize you anymore." "I'll have my lawyer send everything to your lawyer," Junho said. "That's how you wanted to do this, right? Through lawyers?" "Junho, please." He hung up. Then he sat down on the couch and put his head in his hands. This had gone too far. Way too far. He'd wanted to test Sora's love, to see if she'd stand by him. Instead, He'd created a nightmare where she thought he was scamming her, where she was threatening to destroy him, where lawyers and medical records and accusations were flying. His mother had been right about Sora's character, but she'd been wrong about the test being worth it. This wasn't revelation. This was devastation. His phone rang. His mother again. "I heard," Mrs. Kang said. "I have a friend who works at the hospital. She told me what happened. Iyama, I need to end this. Now, before it gets worse." "It's already worse," Mrs. Kang said grimly. "Junho, I just received a call from Sora's lawyer. They're not just pursuing divorce. They're threatening to file charges for fraud, for psychological abuse, for coercion. They're claiming you invented the cancer diagnosis to trap Sora in the marriage." "But that's insane. Even if I did lie, how is that fraud?" "They're claiming you did it to prevent her from leaving, that you knew she wanted a divorce and fabricated an illness to manipulate her into staying. It's a stretch legally, but with their money and their lawyers, they could make your life very difficult." Junho felt the room spin. "This is my fault. I started this. I lied first." "Yes, you did," Mrs. Kang agreed. "But you lied to test her character. She's trying to destroy you because you're inconvenient. There's a difference." "I don't care about the difference anymore. I just want this to end." "Then end it properly," Mrs. Kang said firmly. "Tomorrow, I've arranged for you to get a full medical examination at Seoul National University Hospital. A real one, documented, thorough. We'll get proof that you don't have cancer. And then you'll give that proof to Sora along with a divorce agreement that protects you legally. She'll know I lied. She'll tell everyone." "Let her," Mrs. Kang said. "The truth will be that you tested your wife's character, and she revealed herself to be someone who abandons 6 spouses and tries to profit from their misfortune. Who looks worse in that story, Junho?" He didn't answer. "Get the medical exam tomorrow," his mother repeated. "Document your health, protect yourself legally, and then reveal the truth. It's the only way to end this cleanly." That night, Junho couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the last week in his mind. Sora's immediate calculation when he mentioned money. Her mother's cold proposal. The divorce lawyer. The hospital investigation. The threats. At what point had his marriage died? Had it ever really been alive? Around 3 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Kang, this is Attorney Lee. We'd like to meet tomorrow to discuss a settlement. If you cooperate, we can keep this simple. If you continue to be difficult, we'll have no choice but to pursue more aggressive legal action. Your choice." Junho didn't respond. The next morning, he went to Seoul National University Hospital, as his mother had arranged. Dr. Kim, a gastroenterologist his mother had found through connections, performed a thorough examination. "You're remarkably healthy for someone with advanced gastric cancer," Dr. Kim said dryly after reviewing the results. "In fact, I'd say your stomach is in better condition than mine, and I'm not dying." "I know," Junho said quietly. "I lied about being sick, to test my wife. It sounds insane when I say it out loud." Dr. Kim raised an eyebrow. "Does sound insane. But I've seen worse things people do to each other in marriages. At least you're not actually poisoning her, which is more than I can say for one couple I treated last year." "That's a low bar for comparison." "Most relationships are," Dr. Kim said philosophically. He handed Junho a folder. "Here's your clean bill of health. Documented, signed, officially entered into the hospital system. If your wife's lawyers come asking again, we'll have this on record. Thank you." "Mr. Kang, can I give you some advice?" Dr. Kim leaned back in his chair. "I've been a doctor for 20 years. I've seen a lot of sick people, a lot of families dealing with real illnesses. You know what the real tragedy is?" "What?" "The number of people who face it alone, spouses who leave, children who disappear, Friends who can't handle it. When someone gets really sick, you find out who actually loves them. It's not pleasant, but it's true. He paused. You didn't have cancer, but you still learned something real about your wife. That knowledge is worth something. Is it worth my marriage? Was your marriage worth keeping if it was built on something that fragile? Junho didn't have an answer. He left the hospital with his documentation and went to a coffee shop to think. He ordered an Americano and sat by the window, watching people rush by outside. Ordinary people, living ordinary lives, probably not testing their spouses with fake cancer diagnoses. His phone rang. Sora. We need to meet, she said without preamble. Today. Now. I'm at a coffee shop in Jongno. You can come here if you want. 20 minutes later, Sora walked in. She looked tired, her makeup not quite hiding the dark circles under her eyes. She ordered a latte and sat down across from him. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. I'm sorry, Sora said finally, for how I've handled this, for the lawyers and the investigations and everything. I panicked. Panicked, Junho repeated. Yes, I panicked. You told me you were dying, that we'd need 100 million won, that our whole life was about to fall apart, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I called my mother, and she called lawyers, and everything spiraled out of control. Did you ever love me? Junho asked. Really, truly love me? Sora looked down at her coffee. I thought I did. When we met, you were so different from the men my parents wanted me to marry. You were genuine, kind, idealistic. I admired that. I wanted to be part of that. But admiring something isn't the same as wanting to live it, Sora admitted. I like the idea of being married to a noble teacher. I like telling my friends I chose love over money. But actually living in a small apartment, actually budgeting, actually sacrificing, I hated it. I hated every day of it. The honesty was like a knife, clean and sharp. Why didn't you tell me? Junho asked. Because I kept thinking I'd adjust, that I'd grow into it. That love would be enough. She looked up at him. But then, you told me you were dying, and all I could think was that I'd be trapped in this life forever. Or worse, I'd be trapped in an even smaller life, with medical debt and grief and your mother to take care of, and I just couldn't. So you chose yourself. I chose survival, Sora corrected. Is that really so wrong? Junho pulled out the folder from the hospital. I need to tell you something. He slid the documents across to her. She opened the folder, reading. Her face went from confused to shocked to furious. You don't have cancer, she said flatly. You never had cancer. No, I lied. Why? Her voice was deadly quiet. To test you, my mother suggested it. She wanted to know if you'd stay with me if I wasn't the strong, healthy provider. Sora stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. People turned to look. You lied about having cancer. You put me through a week of hell, of impossible decisions, of tearing myself apart because you wanted to test me. I wanted to know if you loved me. You wanted to trap me. Sora's voice rose. You wanted me to commit to nursing you through a fake illness, to sacrificing everything for a lie. And when I failed your little test, you what? You were just going to divorce me and feel superior? You were looking for ways to abandon me before you even verified the diagnosis, Junho shot back. You hired lawyers. You investigated me. You tried to protect your assets before you even tried to save me. Because that's what smart people do, Sora shouted. They protect themselves. They don't just blindly sacrifice everything on the off chance that things work out. That's called love, Sora. Blind faith. Irrational commitment. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Then I don't want that kind of marriage. Sora grabbed her purse. I want a partner, not a martyr. I want someone who understands that love doesn't mean destroying yourself for the other person. And I want someone who wouldn't calculate the cost-benefit analysis of saving my life. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. "We're done," Sora said finally. "Truly done. I'll have my lawyer send the divorce papers. And Junho. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Your colleagues, your students, everyone. You lied about cancer. You manipulated me. You're not the noble teacher everyone thinks you are." "And you're not the devoted wife," Junho replied. "So I guess we both learned something." Sora left, and Junho sat alone with 2 cups of coffee and the wreckage of his marriage. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Did you tell her?" "Yes, it's over." "I'm sorry, Junho." "Are you?" "This is what you wanted. To prove she wasn't good enough." "I wanted to be wrong," Mrs. Kang replied. "I wanted her to surprise us both. I'm sorry she didn't." Junho stared at his phone for a long time. Then he typed, "I need some time alone. Please don't call for a while." "I understand. I love you." He didn't respond. Over the next few weeks, the story spread exactly as Sora had promised. Junho heard the whispers at school, saw the looks from colleagues. The teacher who faked cancer to test his wife. The manipulator who disguised his cruelty as a social experiment. Some people were sympathetic. Mr. Cho, the vice principal, pulled him aside and said, "Testing people is always a gamble. Sometimes you don't like what you find." But most people thought he was disturbed, cruel, someone to avoid. Junho found himself eating lunch alone. The other teachers were polite but distant. Even Hai-In, who had been friendly before, kept her distance. One day, about a month after the truth came out, Junho was grading papers after school when there was a knock on his classroom door. He looked up to see a woman he didn't recognize. She was maybe 50, nicely dressed, with kind eyes. "Mr. Kang, I'm Kim Ji-won. I'm Sora's aunt, her mother's sister." Junho immediately tensed. "If you're here to threaten me or serve papers..." "No, nothing like that." She came in and sat down at one of the student desks. "I'm here to apologize." "For what?" "For my family. For how my sister and niece treated you." Ji-won sighed. "I've been hearing the story from Sora's side. How terrible you were, how manipulative. But then I heard it from someone else. Someone who knows your mother. And I realized there's more to this story." "There's not much more," Junho said tiredly. "I lied. I tested her. She failed. End of story." "Did she fail? Or did she just fail to be what you wanted her to be?" Junho looked up. "What do you mean?" "My niece is not a bad person," Ji-won said carefully. "But she's young, privileged, and she's never had to sacrifice anything. My sister raised her to value security above all else, to protect herself first. It's not evil, it's just limited. So I should have known better than to expect more from her." "Maybe," Ji-won admitted. "But also, maybe you should have trusted your instincts. You said you felt doubt in your marriage. Instead of lying, you could have talked to her, asked the hard questions, faced the truth together." "She wouldn't have been honest." "Maybe not. But at least you wouldn't have lied about cancer." Ji-won stood up. "Mr. Kang, I'm not saying what Sora did was right. The way she immediately calculated costs, the way she protected her assets first, it was cold. Selfish, even. But what you did was also wrong. Testing people without their knowledge, judging them for failing a test they didn't know they were taking, that's not love either." "Then what is love?" Junho asked, genuinely wanting to know. "Love is choosing someone despite their limitations," Ji-won said. "It's saying, I know you're not perfect. I know you might fail me sometimes, but I choose you anyway. Neither of you chose each other. You chose an idea. She chose security. You chose validation. Neither of you chose the actual person." After she left, Junho sat alone in his classroom for a long time. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Students were heading home, their voices echoing in the hallways. He thought about what Ji-won had said, about choosing people despite their limitations, about how neither he nor Sora had really chosen each other, just versions of each other that fit their needs. His phone rang. He almost didn't answer, but the number was his mother's. "Junho, I need to tell you something," Mrs. Kang said, her voice strange. "I went to the doctor today. Routine checkup. They found something." Junho's blood went cold. "What do you mean they found something?" "A mass. In my lung. They need to do more tests, but..." Her voice broke. "It might be serious." And just like that, the universe delivered its irony. Junho had lied about dying, and now his mother might actually be dying. "I'm coming over," Junho said, grabbing his things. "Right now." At his mother's apartment, Mrs. Kang looked small and scared in a way Junho had never seen. She handed him the medical reports with shaking hands. "They said it could be cancer," she whispered. "Lung cancer. They won't know for sure until they do a biopsy," but the doctor seemed concerned. Junho read through the reports, the medical terminology swimming before his eyes. Terms he'd researched just a few weeks ago for his fake diagnosis. Malignancy, staging, prognosis. "Iyama," he said, taking her hand. "Whatever this is, we'll face it together. I'm not going anywhere." "Junho, if it's cancer, the treatment will be expensive. I don't have much saved. I don't want to be a burden." "Stop," Junho interrupted firmly. "You're my mother. You raised me alone. You sacrificed everything for me. Now it's my turn. Whatever you need, whatever it costs. We'll figure it out." Mrs. Kang started crying, and Junho held her while she sobbed. And in that moment, he understood something he hadn't before. This was what he'd wanted from Sora. This immediate, unconditional commitment. This willingness to sacrifice without calculation. But the difference was, he'd had 30 years of his mother's love to build that foundation. He'd only had 2 years with Sora. 2 years where they'd never really known each other. How could he have expected her to give what he'd never actually earned? Over the next week, Junho went with his mother to appointments, tests, consultations. The biopsy confirmed it. Stage 2 lung cancer. Treatable, but serious. Surgery and chemotherapy would be required. The cost estimate was staggering. 80 million won, maybe more. Junho looked at his savings. 12 million won. His mother's savings, 5 million. Together, nowhere near enough. He applied for medical loans, looked into insurance coverage, calculated and recalculated. No matter how he approached it, they were short. He was sitting at his mother's kitchen table, surrounded by financial documents, when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Kang? This is Lee Minho. I'm Sora's cousin. We met at your wedding, but you probably don't remember." "What can I do for you?" Junho asked tiredly. "I heard about your mother, about her diagnosis. I also heard you're struggling to afford treatment. News travels fast in your family." "It does. Listen, I'm calling because I want to help. I know things ended badly between you and Sora, but your mother doesn't deserve to suffer because of that. I'd like to offer you a loan. Interest-free, payment schedule flexible. Whatever you need for her treatment." Junho couldn't speak for a moment. "Why would you do that?" "Because I liked you at the wedding. You seemed genuine. And because I've met enough of my family's type to know that choosing yourself doesn't make you evil, but choosing to help someone else makes you good. I want to be good." Tears pricked Junho's eyes. "I don't know what to say. Say yes. Let me help." "Yes," Junho managed. "Yes, thank you." After he hung up, Junho put his head down on the table and cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming complexity of human nature. Sora had abandoned him over a fake illness. Her cousin was saving his mother from a real one. People were impossible to categorize, impossible to predict. 'Impossible to predict. Impossible to predict. His mother came into the kitchen. "Who was that?" Junho asked. "Lee Minho. He's Sora's cousin." "Who was that?" Junho asked. "Lee Minho. He's Sora's cousin." "Who was that?" Junho asked. "His mother came into the kitchen. Someone offering to help, Junho said, wiping his eyes. Someone I didn't expect. That's usually how it works, Mrs. Kang said, sitting down beside him. She looked at the papers spread across the table. Junho, I need to apologize to you. For what? For encouraging you to test Sora. I was wrong. I was bitter about my own experiences, and I projected that onto your marriage. I made you doubt something that maybe could have been saved. Yama, you were right about her. She did abandon me. But you pushed her to it, Mrs. Kang said gently. You created an impossible situation, and then judged her for not being impossible herself. That wasn't fair. I just wanted to know if she loved me. Love isn't something you test, Junho. It's something you build. Day by day, choice by choice, compromise by compromise. You and Sora never built that foundation. You were too proud. She was too comfortable. Neither of you did the hard work. Junho knew she was right, but it hurt to hear it. What do I do now? He asked. You take care of your mother, Mrs. Kang said, squeezing his hand. You go to work, you live your life, and you learn from this. And someday, when you meet someone else, you choose to build instead of test. 3 months later, Mrs. Kang had her surgery. It went well. The cancer was removed, and her prognosis was good. She'd need chemotherapy, but the doctors were optimistic. Junho took a leave of absence from school to care for her during recovery. They spent long days together, talking about things they'd never talked about before. His father, her sacrifices, his marriage, her regrets. I loved your father very much, Mrs. Kang told him one afternoon. But our marriage wasn't perfect. We fought about money, about his gambling, about my work. When he got sick, part of me was angry at him for leaving me with all those problems to solve alone. You never told me that, Junho said, surprised, because I didn't want you to think that love was anything less than perfect devotion. But Junho, love is messy. It's staying even when you're angry. It's choosing someone even when they disappoint you. It's not about passing tests. It's about showing up. Sora didn't show up. No, she didn't, and that's on her. But you also didn't give her a real chance to show up for a real crisis. You gave her a fake one and judged her for not being a saint. Junho nodded slowly. I think I understand now. Too late, but I understand. One day, Junho was at the pharmacy picking up his mother's medication when he ran into Hae-in, his colleague from school. Junho, I heard about your mother. How is she? Recovering well, thank you. He was surprised she was being friendly, given how most people had distanced themselves. I'm glad. Hae-in hesitated. Can I buy you coffee? I want to talk to you about something. At the coffee shop, Hae-in stirred her latte for a long time before speaking. I owe you an apology. When the story came out about what you did to Sora, I judged you. I avoided you. But then I thought about it more, and I realized I understood why you did it. You did? After my divorce, I was so angry at my ex-husband for not seeing me, for not valuing me. If I'd had a way to test whether he really loved me before I wasted 5 years, I might have taken it. Maybe not a fake illness, but something. Some way to know for sure. But it was still wrong, Junho said. What I did was manipulative. Yes, it was, Hae-in agreed. But it came from a real place of hurt and doubt. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it human. She paused. I'm not saying you should be excused. I'm saying I understand why you needed to know. They talked for an hour about marriage and doubt and the impossible task of knowing another person's heart. When they parted, Hae-in said, Come back to school when you're ready. We miss you. Even the people who judged you miss you. I don't know if I can face everyone. You can, Hae-in said firmly, because you're not just the man who lied about cancer. You're also the man who took a leave of absence to care for his sick mother. You're the teacher whose students still ask about you. You're more than your worst decision. 6 months after his mother's surgery, Junho returned to school. It was awkward at first. People didn't know what to say to him. But slowly, day by day, he rebuilt his professional relationships. He focused on teaching, on being present for his students, on doing the work without expecting redemption. One afternoon, a student stayed after class. Park Minji, the girl who wanted to be a doctor. "Mr. Kang, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure, Minji." "Is it true that you lied about having cancer?" Junho sighed. Of course the students knew. "Yes, it's true." "Why would you do that?" "Because I was scared and stupid," Junho said honestly. "I wanted to know if my wife loved me, and I chose the worst possible way to find out." "Did it work? Did you find out?" "Yes, but not in the way I expected. I found out that testing people's love doesn't tell you about them. It tells you about yourself, about what you're capable of, about your own fears and doubts." Minji considered this. "Do you regret it?" "Every day." "But would you take it back, if you could go back and not do it?" Junho thought about this carefully. "I don't know. If I hadn't done it, I'd still be married to someone who didn't really love me. But I'd also be someone who hadn't done something so cruel. I'm not sure which version of myself is better. I think," Minji said slowly, "that the version of yourself who can admit he was wrong is better than the version who never tested it but always wondered." After she left, Junho sat at his desk for a long time, thinking about second chances and redemption and whether people could really change. 2 years after the fake cancer diagnosis, Junho received an unexpected email from Sora. "Junho, I know we haven't spoken in a long time. I heard your mother is doing well, and I'm genuinely happy about that. I'm reaching out because I've been in therapy, working through a lot of things, and my therapist suggested I write to you. Not to ask for forgiveness or to restart anything, but to acknowledge my part in what happened. You were wrong to lie, but I was also wrong to immediately calculate costs instead of offering comfort. I was wrong to hire lawyers before trying to understand. I was wrong to think of your illness in terms of what it would cost me instead of what it was costing you. I want you to know that I've learned from this. I'm dating someone new now, and when his father got sick last month, I didn't run. I didn't calculate. I just showed up. It was hard and scary and expensive, but I did it. Because you taught me, in the worst possible way, what it looks like when someone doesn't show up. And I never want to be that person again. I'm not asking to be friends. I'm not asking for anything except maybe mutual understanding. We were both young and stupid and we hurt each other. Can we agree on that much?" Sora Junho read the email 3 times. Then he wrote back. "Sora, thank you for writing. Yes, we can agree on that. We hurt each other. And we both had our reasons. And none of it was as simple as either of us wanted it to be. I'm glad you showed up for your new partner. I'm glad you learned something, even from something so terrible. I learned too. I learned that testing people's love is a form of self-sabotage, that my doubts were really about me, not you, that I was so afraid of being left, that I created a situation where leaving was the most logical choice. I'm sorry for what I put you through. You deserved a husband who trusted you enough to be honest, even when the truth was uncomfortable. I hope your new relationship is everything you deserve. Junho." After he sent it, Junho felt something release in his chest. Not quite closure, but something close to it. An acknowledgement that people were complicated, that hurt came from hurt, that forgiveness didn't require friendship, but just recognition of shared humanity. That spring, Junho's mother was declared cancer-free. They celebrated with samgyeopsal at her favorite restaurant, and for the first time in years, Junho saw her genuinely happy. "I'm proud of you," she said suddenly, over soju and pork belly. For what? For surviving? For learning? For becoming someone better than the person you were 3 years ago? I'm not sure I'm better, Junho admitted. I'm just more aware of my capacity for cruelty. That's what being better means, Mrs. Kang said. Not becoming perfect, but becoming aware. Now you know what you're capable of. In both directions. You can choose which capability to feed. At school, Junho found himself actually enjoying teaching again. Not just going through the motions, but connecting with students, being present, doing the work for its own sake, rather than as a distraction from personal pain. One day, Haein stopped by his classroom after school. Are you free Saturday? Why? There's an art exhibit in Insadong. I thought you might want to go. As friends, she added quickly. Just as colleagues who enjoy art. I don't know much about art, Junho admitted. Neither do I. We can be confused together. They went to the exhibit, and then to dinner. And then somehow it became a regular thing. Coffee on weekends, movies on Friday nights. Long walks along the Han River discussing everything and nothing. 3 months in, Haein said, You know this is dating, right? Is it? I think so. Unless you think we're just very dedicated friends who hold hands sometimes. Junho looked at their intertwined fingers, surprised he hadn't consciously noticed when that started happening. I think I'm terrified. Of what? Of messing this up the way I messed up my marriage. Haein squeezed his hand. Junho, you're going to mess up sometimes. I'm going to mess up sometimes. But the difference is, we know what messing up looks like now. We know what happens when people don't communicate, when they test instead of trust, when they protect themselves instead of being vulnerable. And that knowledge helps. It helps us choose differently, Haein said. Every day, we choose to be honest instead of strategic, to be vulnerable instead of protected, to build instead of test. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. Do you want to try? Junho looked at her, really looked at her, not at an idealized version or a fantasy or what he hoped she could be, just at Haein, with her messy hair and her sarcastic humor, and her history of a failed marriage, and her willingness to be here anyway. Yes, he said. I want to try. 5 years after the fake cancer diagnosis, Junho married Haein in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. No elaborate wedding, no expensive venue. Just a simple commitment in front of people who actually knew them. At the reception, his mother gave a toast. When my son first got married, I made a terrible mistake. I encouraged him to test his wife's love. I thought I was protecting him, but really, I was passing on my own fears and bitterness. That test destroyed his first marriage, and the guilt of that has haunted me. She looked at Junho and Haein. But from that destruction, something real was built. My son learned that love isn't about passing tests. It's about showing up, imperfectly, honestly, day after day. And Haein, you've shown up in ways that humble me. Thank you for giving my son a second chance at love. A real one, this time. After the wedding, Junho and Haein went to their modest apartment in Yongsan. No honeymoon in Europe, no luxury suite. Just home, with its ordinary furniture and its real life waiting. Are you happy? Haein asked as they sat on their couch, still in their wedding clothes. Junho thought about it, about Sora and the fake diagnosis and the wreckage of his first marriage, about his mother's illness and the kindness of strangers, about all the ways people failed and forgave and tried again. Yes, he said. Not perfectly. But really, I'm really happy. Good, because I'm about to tell you something that's going to test that happiness. Junho's heart seized. What? I'm pregnant. For a moment, Junho couldn't breathe. Then he started laughing, the irony too perfect. You're serious? Very serious. 3 months. I found out last week, but I wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you. And you're sure you want this? Want me? Want this life? Junho, I've seen you at your worst. I've heard all the stories about what you did. And I'm still here. That should tell you something. It tells me you might be crazy. Or it tells me I'm choosing you. Flaws and all, doubts and all, mistakes and all. Isn't that what love actually is? Junho pulled her close. Yes, that's exactly what it is. 10 years after the fake cancer diagnosis, Junho sat in a parent-teacher conference for his daughter Hana. She was 7, bright and curious, and she'd apparently told her classmates that her father used to be kind of a bad person. I hope she's not causing problems, Junho said to the teacher, embarrassed. The teacher laughed. No, not at all. She was very matter-of-fact about it. She said you made a big mistake when you were younger, but you learned from it and became better. She thinks that's important, that people can change. That night, tucking Hana into bed, Junho asked, "Why did you tell your class that I used to be a bad person?" "Because Teacher Kim said people are either good or bad, and I said that's not true. People are both. They make good choices and bad choices." "And what did Teacher Kim say?" "She said I was wise for 7. Junho smiled. "You are wise. Where did you learn that?" "From you and Iyama. You tell me stories about your mistakes, about how you hurt people, and then tried to do better. You don't pretend you were always good. Is that okay? That your dad made mistakes?" Hana thought about it. "It's better. Because it means when I make mistakes, I can do better too. Like you did." After she fell asleep, Junho stood in the doorway of her room, watching her breathe. This life, this real life with its complications and imperfections and daily choices, was so much better than any fantasy he'd ever constructed. Heian came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Thinking deep thoughts? Thinking about how I don't deserve any of this. Deserve is a capitalist construct. You have this because you chose it, and you worked for it, and you showed up for it. Every single day. I tested my first wife by pretending I had cancer. Yes, you did. And it was terrible. And you learned from it. And you became someone who would never do that again. That's what matters, Junho. Not that you never did wrong, but that you let doing wrong change you for the better." They stood there together, watching their daughter sleep. This miracle of a second chance. Junho thought about Sora sometimes, wondered if she was happy, if she'd found what she was looking for. He'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd married a doctor, someone wealthy and stable. He hoped it was working out for her. He hoped she'd learned to show up. He thought about his first marriage sometimes, about the test and the lies and the wreckage. But mostly he thought about the distance between that Junho and this one. The years of therapy and humility and daily practice of being honest even when it was uncomfortable. The old Junho had tested love because he didn't trust it. This Junho trusted love because he'd learned to build it, brick by imperfect brick. And that made all the difference.